Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube art tutorial channel. Well, there's the shop and cafe, so the hall must be just past this white building on the left. Here we go. Lovely. East Mersea Village Hall. Well, I'm at East Mersea Village Hall this morning, and I'm running a group of for a group of artists here on Mersea Island. So really looking forward to it, all set up. So we'll pop inside and meet the group. Well, here we are then. This is the subject that we're looking at today, and everybody's arriving. We've got about 10 minutes to go. So I thought I'd just show you the subject. It's trees, and I do have the photograph that I'll be working to, which is, you know, quite fitting, I think, more springtime sort of subject. And we'll be looking at the tonal version to start with. So we'll be looking at the tone qualities of this particular subject. Okay, well, we're going to look at tone values first, okay? Now, I'm going to use Paynes grey, and if we look on the coloured version, I think that ought to stand up there so that you can actually see the coloured version, and I'll pull it away again. The coloured version, the sky is almost white, but I think I will give it just a merest tint of a colour, but at the moment we're looking at tone. So you could almost leave it white. No, I'll tell you why I'm not going to, because I want to wet the paper. Because I want to show you soft edges with tone as well. So I'm using a small amount of Paynes grey, very small amount, with plenty of water. You can always water it down. You can even damp the paper first if you feel that you know you're not going to get a wash of colour, but I'm dampening the paper with this very weak colour, and because it's light I can go over everything, right? Because I'm not painting around the trees, I'm painting over the complete picture, the complete area, but let's go a little bit darker at the top because that'll run down nicely. There you go. But as we come down, I want a clean wash of colour on here. So I'm onto dry paper. You could damp it. Now I'm only going down as far as the edge of the field, over the distant land. Okay. So now that is important in this case, because that gives me a chance to get the distant land in a blur. Now remember, when I did the course or the demonstration, I was all tied up with creating distant land and the distant trees in a blurred manner, right? And this is what I intend to do with this one as well. Right, so that's the sky. There's a bit of tint there, but not great. Once it dries, it will be quite... I'm actually damping that up again because it does dry very quickly. It's meant to be 20 today. 20!
Unlikely to be 20 in the village hall.
Pardon?
Unlikely to be 20 in here.
No.
I don't feel it, does it?
I've got a feeling my sandwiches won't go off. No. Right. Okay, so that's that nicely damp. There we go. That's nice. I want to keep that fairly well damp. Don't want that to run down, otherwise it does spoil the wash to a certain extent, particularly Paynes grey. You will be working at less of an angle, of course. Right, distant land, just a little bit darker, just a touch more Paynes grey. And I'm putting this in. It's like a hill of affair, that sort of thing in the distance. Could even be darker than that. Just got to watch it doesn't run down. You shouldn't have too much of a problem with it running down like that. I'm just going to go one tone darker because it needs a bit of tone onto that. And I'm painting while it's still wet. Now if you can achieve that, just go right the way across. Now I'm finishing there. No need really because it's going to be darker. Now the next area I want to look at before I paint that in is behind this tree. I want that to be blurred. So I'm using the same tone there. But on these outer edges you may see some overhanging leafing. Take that off again, just quickly. So you may see a little bit of overhanging leafing, like that. A little bit darker, not too dark. There we go. So we're picking up all these leaves that are overhanging in the background, because that's going to be a soft area. That's going to be where we can't really see whether they're leaves, branches. They're just disappearing behind that tree. So slowly, I'm going to go one tone darker. It's not exact science, you know, but then again, painting never is it? You know, you'll all have your own tone value. Some of you will paint, oh that's nice, that's a little bit harder edge there because it's drying. That's okay, I don't mind that. A little bit softer in the background, there we are. So I'm dropping in varying tones. Okay, I want to do most of it here now. Don't want to do anything, don't want to leave too much. It gets a bit darker, if you notice, in the lower area. Lighter at the top, a little bit darker in the lower area. But I'm, you know, putting a lot in here, you know, you could just a clean wash would do it. Right, that's that. Now, a similar tone is this tree that comes in on the right hand side, there. And this time, because the paper's dry, gives me the opportunity, particularly at the top there, to create overhanging branches. Now, the thing is here that we've got a lighter tree in front of it, right? So we've got a darker tree there, then we've got a lighter one there, then it goes dark as it goes out of picture. So what the art of this is to create the shape of the overhanging branches. Hope that doesn't run down too much. There we go. And I'm just going to go, just to really show them, I'm going just a tone darker. There you go, particularly on the overhang. Tonal paintings are always a good thing to do. You know, I very often do tonal drawings before I start a painting, but anything to do with tone before you start is really a good thing to do, you know, unless you're really proficient. And I mean, when I go out to paint, I can see the tones really. But for anyone learning, you know, I was like that at one time. I thought, oh, I can't be bothered, I just want to put colour down. And then that's when you make all the mistakes. So the art to not making too many mistakes is to try and sort the main areas of tone when you paint your tonal version, right? Once you've got the idea of tone, the colour you use is not as important anymore. Because after all, you can create a nice painting using black and white and all the other little tones that go with it. Now that sits there, and I've left that lighter. Do you know I'm going to go one tone darker? You know, it is a
Is he still using the grey?
still Paynes grey, just using Paynes grey to create that tonal version. Now, while I have this, we have a lighter hedge in the distance, okay? Now, that looks lighter, but do you know, I'm going to make it darker, right? Because I'm going to keep it the same tone as that. And there's a small, like a hedge running across You could make it lighter, but I just felt that this, and it just tapers and goes in behind that tree. I just thought a tone darker would suit quite well. And then finally, before we get you to do something today, I'm going to just put in the lighter area of that tree and then the darker. Just allowing that to dry a little bit before we start. Okay, now that's dry just a little. I'm just going to put in a light tone. It's got to be lighter than that tree there. And this time I'm not touching that edge. I may do just in places just to get a bit of marrying together. But all being well, I can get the sunlight on the tips of that tree or bush or whatever it is, shrub of some sort. And this is, it will dry up lighter. You'll notice your tonal values are always darker when they're wet. And that stands right down onto the foreground field. And that's where we get that hard edge. Just blend that away like that. And it actually stands somewhere there, which is quite interesting, that. I like the idea of that, shooting out there. And we can see the difference between there and there. And then as we go out of picture, just to hold the eye, we're going to go one tone darker again, or even perhaps 2 tones darker. And while it's still wet, you can get a soft edge of giving a feeling that, you know, if you notice, it's a rounded shape. It looks rounded, right? And the way to do that is to put a medium tone on, like that, and swing that over. Just use the point of the brush so that you're not creating not just a band of colour. It's all about these tone values and the way trees overhang. Now I'm going to go quite strong with this colour. Almost the darkest that I've painted in. There we go. And that goes up a little bit, not right to the top because we've got the light coming from the left. Look at that. Look at that. And I'm just dropping out 1 or 2 little touches, just if there's the odd branch overhanging there. And that then sits on the ground even 1 tone darker. Now the dark colours you use for this area will set the scene for the dark versions that you use from now on. And once you allow that to completely dry, you have got your tone values for the distance. There we are. So once it dries, give it 5 minutes and you'll notice everything will dry. By all means you can come up and take a photograph of this stage, please do, for future reference. I always say that it's not in these courses that you produce your best work, although I've said that, some of them have been better than mine. But it's not in these courses that you produce your best work. What it is, you are learning new techniques that, if you take photographs of the varied stages, you can take home with you and reproduce that, perhaps on this subject to start, and perhaps a similar subject. Okay, so that really is now over to you to produce your version of this. Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, it's break time here at East Mersea workshop, and that will done very well actually. Okay, that's the first stage, nice and dry now. We've got the real, we can now see, you'll probably, once you go back again to yours, you'll see it looks different because it will all be dry. You see, the tone values dry up lighter than when they're wet. With watercolour, it's one thing you've got to try and learn, to paint in a little darker than you would normally put the colour on. If you know if it looks the right tone wet, it'll be too light. Okay. If it looks very, very dark, then I think it probably will be a little too dark. You know, just a tone or two darker than you really need. Right, now the field. Well, we can see the field is very light. Right? Very light. But then all of a sudden it turns in the bank and we get a very dark tone. So that's our next stage. So we pick up a very weak, and it's just a matter of adding water, depending how you're mixing, you know, adding water to a colour that you've already got on your palette, using the large brush again. I'm going to paint right the way through yet again, but one thing I will show you in a second. But anyway, so this is going to be pulled right the way through. Nice to have a little bit of white paper on that edge in the distance and there. So that's all somewhat darker, somewhat lighter than the distance, and that will give you the feeling of sunlight. All of a sudden you've got that feeling of sunlight. I'm just going to go one tone darker, just to give it just a little bit. But you see, there again, you see, the reason I went one tone darker, because it looked the right tone, but of course it's going to dry back. So I went one tone darker, okay? So that's the idea of tone value. And because it's wet, if you notice, we've got a soft edge there, right? It's not, it is spiky, but it looks quite soft. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring that colour down a little bit more, but not right. Oh, and where we've got little little grasses standing up, I'm just going to paint back into that, so I've still got white paper, like little grasses standing up at the base of that tree. And if you notice, I'm pointing them into the picture, because that will send the eye into the picture when people view it, right? Okay, right. So that's still wet. I've gone just below that to there, but I'm not going right the way down. So I'm working onto wet paper there to get a rounded edge, dry paper there to get a hard edge along the river. Well, that's the theory, and if I don't hurry up, trust me, I've gone with the wrong colour. I was going to use Prussian blue for a minute. Right, let's start again. Oh, look at that, Paynes grey. I want it dark anyway. Right, how dark do I want it? Well, just go in, there we go. And it's quite uneven, isn't it? Yeah. So let's just go like that. And we're getting a soft edge. And it actually tapers a bit as it goes round the corner. And I'm painting the soft edge in, like that. So that's the uneven riverbank that's in shadow. And then where it comes along here, you'll notice you've got a lovely contrast between the foreground bank and the riverbank. And that way, we just flick back in to, maybe I'm going to put a little bit there. There we are. I'm going to continue that along there. You can't really see it, it is a little bit darker. There we are, look at that. And immediately we've got the grasses standing up, and there are some ferns there, but I'm not too concerned about getting the fern shapes. You know, we could take all morning with the shape of a fern, but it's vital that we don't do that. And now I'm going really dark now into the dry paper just before that dries, and all of a sudden I'm going to put a straight edge along there, but I'm just going up the bank in places, down, getting the definite tone value to show that all of a sudden you've got sunlight in the field, the bank turns down into the water's edge. Look at that. Isn't this watercolour painting brilliant? You know, you can't go wrong.
Oh yes, you can. Definitely.
Well, I must admit, I've made a few mistakes in the time, I can tell you that much. So don't think that every artist can do everything. He's an absolute, you know, fail safe, because just going to use a little bit uneven just along the bank, because there will be reflection, of course, in the water. There we are. So that is my river bank in the tone value that you see there. All we've got to do when we paint colour is to paint a very yellow green and then a very dark green, just getting that soft edge coming up. And even along the river bank, I'll put some earthy patches that will look just like where the river has worn away at the bank. So you've got a little bit of earth. But at the moment, it's still that tone value. Now, while that's drying, I wouldn't want to put in the reflection or any of the river until we've done this bank here. So, now what do we do to this bank? Well, we've got to go back to a lighter tone again. See, we do have shadow, but it's still overall quite light. And we've got to leave the spiky areas lighter than the, don't want to bring those together at all, there we are. And of course, once we get to there, we then spike out into, there we go. Right, now I can paint right the way down, because that's my peaceful area, okay? Then, I have another spiky area. Notice I've done the drawings there. We've got a spiky area, and spiky, and a bit more bold in the foreground because they are nearer. And how are we doing with that? Yeah, let's have some spiky touches there, some little touches there. And this is going up. You see the way my brush, I'm going up there like that, and I'm just putting in little dots and dashes and bits and bobs. We don't want, you know, we don't want just all spikes. And then, of course, the lighter ones I'm painting down. Then I'm going in with a little darker to get more or less the feeling of a shadow tone from that tree. While it's still damp, slightly damp. And then we're getting a shadow tone here. Look at the way it gives that impression of just catching that just right, I think. I've had a bit of luck there, look at that. Crikey. That doesn't very often happen. Look at that though. Does that look like grasses? A little bit, doesn't it? And then some real dark stuff. We may have the odd little dark stuff there in the water. There we are. The odd little touch. There we are. See, so we've got, you know, lights, medium grasses, and then we've got the darker tone. And actual fact, I'm going to go, whoops. Why do I keep going into blue? I think I'm painting colour. Paynes grey. Paynes grey. That's it. There we are, a little bit darker there, just to pick up some. There we are, look, there's another little tone. Like that. And then there may be just a touch there. Now you've got to watch you don't overdo this, because you can put so many different tones, lights and darks, you will overdo it. So telling myself that and telling you that gives me the opportunity to actually not do it myself. Now, there's a light area there, so I'm going to bring that light area through. And so this is the lighter area, softening in places, leaving hard edges in others where the grasses are. So that gradually brings that through. Now that is light, but of course, as it goes out, you could leave it like that, you know, it does look Pretty good, you know. I could almost say that's pretty much there. But I'm going to go too far with this one, and I'm going to put something else in, just for the hell of it, you know, just to see what it does. Oh, there you go, look. Just a little bit in that corner there, perhaps a little touch there, and that's soft edge because it's damp. And when I take the surround away, or as you may do later in the day, and mount your picture, you'll see that that is a benefit possibly in the bottom right hand corner. Okay, so that is your next stage. We're purely looking now at the water and finishing touches. Now, there are little bits and pieces I want to do to the bank, but that will be very quick. I want to do a little bit here just to offset the strength of that against the softness of that. But before I do that, I want to look at the water. Right? Now, there is a lot going on in that water. We could treat that water as just a pure flat surface. But I want to put in one or two little rocks and bits and bobs. Okay. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this large rigger again. Now, the rock, all the little rocks and pebbles in this more of a stream sort of area are quite dark. But pebbles, right, and rocks, right. This is the way I do rocks. It's not the way everyone does them, but I think this is a good rule of thumb. Now, water always lays flat, right? Never goes uphill or downhill. Well, you can say waterfalls, and yeah, okay. Right, so I can see one. No, not put it there. There, you've got to remember you've got the reflection of the bank first. So I'm not going to worry too much, although I am actually. I am going to worry. There's a large rock there, right? But of course, it finishes level on the water, right? Okay, so that is a light rock, okay? We're going to put another couple of smaller ones in. We're going to put in one there. We're going to put in another one there. One or two others just there. Put in a bigger one there. There again, like all these things, once you find a technique to use, you tend to overdo it, you know. So I don't want to put too many in. I'm going to put in another little one there, one or two areas there. Some of these will get lost eventually. If I don't like them, they'll just get painted into the water. Right, so that's our rocks, right? But they're only one tone. So rocks to me, quite often when I'm painting out in, where would it be? Yorkshire, the moors, you see rocky outcrops, right? And normally the sunlit side of the rock is lighter than the grass it sits in, right? Then you get a medium tone, right, where the sun is just not quite come around. Then you get the shadow side. So I'm only going to use two tones for this, light and dark. So at the moment they look very flat. Okay, sun coming from the back. This back edge would be in shadow like that. And it could be all sorts of shapes, really. Normally they're straight edged. Just a touch there and a touch there. Touch on that back, touch there, but albeit flat. And all of a sudden, they take on a sort of a shape of their own. These ones will be quite dark because they're more or less in silhouette against the water, all right? But generally, now, the other trick will be just painting the water. Well, that's the easiest thing in the world. Says he who we'll end up with a mess here, you know. Right, now, first thing you would see is the reflection of the bank. So, I'm generalising again, if you had a tree standing there, you wouldn't see the tree reflected there. It would be on top of the bank, so you'd see the bank reflection, then you'd see the tree reflect on that. So it's never a mirror image of what you see. It's what you see from that point of the water looking up. That's what you've got to remember. So if in doubt, swim out to where you want to right, and then just have a look up, and then you can come back and paint it, you see. So anyway, that's the thing to remember. Now the tone. Right, on the photograph, it looks quite dark, right? That's why that bank looks very high, because in actual fact, a lot of that is the reflection. Now, for those of you that have been very wide with that, and I know one or two of you have, right? If you've been very wide, you can class some of that as the reflection, right? So you can go straight into with your water. I'm going to show a little bit of water reflection, and it's going to be quite dark, but it's either got to be darker or lighter. And the general rule of thumb, reflections are a leveller of tone. Right? In other words, if you look on a photograph, a very dark area normally reflects slightly lighter, and a very light area normally reflects slightly darker. So if you've got a whitewashed building, it will never be dead white in the water, because the water has a colour of its own as well, right? But if you have a very dark tree, if you look closely, invariably that tree will be slightly lighter in the reflection. So it's a leveller of tone, right? So what I'm going to do, and a lot of it really is just reflecting the sky, because it's only, you know, we've not got anything else reflecting, only the bank. Now, when I paint my bank area, I'm going to paint across like that. Right, so that's the bank reflection. Sharpen up that edge shortly. But it doesn't finish like that, it finishes in ripples. So I'm leaving a few ripples unpainted. And I'm just, hang on, I'm going to leave a white area on top of that rock. Look at that.
Well, are you still in Paynes grey, or have you dipped into...
No, that's still painted, I hope so. As far as I can tell, at this moment, I'm in Paynes grey, yeah.
So if you have done your hedge quite large,
yes,
how do you get ripples into the shadow which is incorporated into your quite large hedge?
Good question. Pick up a very dark tone and paint those ripples just below, just into that area.
That's
right?
me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I thought that
Oh, right. No. Paint them into your, you know, so combine the two together and then just pull the ripples out. So you're not... So,
pull the ripples out with a darker...
Yeah, so in other words, paint that and then just ripple the bottom edge. So make that a little darker, right, and then ripple the edge out. Okay. I think I've got away with that one. Yeah, I'm sure that will work, but I'll come and give you a look at it. No, that's the way I would still produce that, because these ripples really are quite important to the feeling of water. Right? So that's that. Then, of course, we get the reflection of the rock that is solid, but on the outside edges it's rippled, and the reflection of that rock, and the reflection of that rock. This really, the rocks that are in the water are quite crucial. The reflection is lighter than the shadowed area. Those are about the same, so there you go. We're not really concerned about those. Go, and all of a sudden those rocks tend to stand out. Let's make that just a little darker there. Just show that rock just a little bit more. There you go. We can see that a little better there. And then weakening the colour and just pull that across there. And I'm just then just trying to give the effect of glassy sort of movement onto that water. Because it is quite a stream sort of affair. I'm going to go a little darker in this lower area here. Just pull across there. Just to try and create a bit of balance. That's it. Let's just blend that through just a touch. Put that in a little darker. That's it. There we are. And there again you can see the rocks against the light. We've got the dark against the light of that rock, and to a certain extent that rock there. But then you've got the dark against the light. So there you've got the light top of the rock against the dark shadow or reflection. There you've got the light, the dark rock, but all you've got there is the reflection. So you've not got any the water. Yeah, basically the water is very much lighter than the rock, basically. Good. So I think we only need a few finishing touches. Now, some of you I know have already bashed along and produced some very good little finishing touches as well. I must admit, I'm learning a lot today because I've looked at some of yours and I thought I'm going to use that. Yeah. Right. Where am I going to start? Well, the tree is very important. So let's make a little bit more of that little area there. And of course, coming up into that area there with one or two bits of undergrowth, and let's just keep the flips going. One or two little dots and dashes. And occasionally just soften that with my finger, just instead of using a damp brush. Now, I've got to watch I don't fall into the trap of the same clumps. Oh, I'll tell you where I would like some dark to really show up that water there. And these lighter areas that I've put in are very good to help bulk up this grassy area there. There we are. And then we gradually taper that away. Oh, that's running out of paint. See the way it's actually dragging up better. So it's giving a slightly different technique, a different sort of feel. And that's what you do, you work it out as you go along. There we are, yeah, I think I can be. Right, now, I've got to be careful, got to watch that I don't put them too many places. Right, let's add a little bit more water to this, because I want a fairly spiky area coming back there. Don't want to get too complicated. That's what I've got to watch, and then some little touches coming out there. There we are, so that just balances, and just perhaps within this dark area here, some more touches, couple coming there. Once I take the surround away, all will be revealed, and along the riverbank. Remember I said about some darker browns along the edge of the river. Well, this is what I'm putting in here. Let's just put in, and if you notice, I'm only putting them in places. I'm not putting a line along. I'm trying to put them in a different sort of way, really. Soften that where it meets the water. There we are. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. Running out of picture. I'm just playing with the idea of one or two little grasses coming up out of those. And I'll let you know whether that's worked in a minute. Because you don't have to put them in. In fact, Well, I'd bother if I was you. But anyway, and then finally, I just feel that there's something on the side here that, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to use the mop for this. A dry mop brush with a touch of strong Paynes grey, and I'm removing, I'm not letting you see what I'm doing, removing a lot of the moisture from the side of the palette, right? And I'm going to put in just a little bit of shrubbery that's dark against that light there. And I think that tends to create, yes, interest in that right hand side. There we are. And that helps, I think, to balance the tree and it's not really there, but it doesn't really matter. You know, you've got to design it, you know. It might grow over time, you never know, you know, it may be there. And then, of course, those of you that have tape around, you can't think, once the picture has been completed, then just peel that away. I've got another one under here for the next second stage, so not certain what to peel off and what won't. There you go. And that now gives you the complete, tonal values of the scene that we've got there. But of course, as always, don't forget to sign it. Because one day, you never know.
I think I do.
Yes.
I think I do actually, but I'm still signing mine anyway. I'm going to sign it there.
That's lovely.
There you go. And that is the beauty of a tonal sketch. Okay, over to you to complete your painting before lunch. Look at that. Look at that. Because I've got a feeling. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching that, and thank you all for supporting my YouTube channel. We'll see you all again next time.